Good evening and welcome to Hardfire. I'm your host, Joseph Dobrian, and I'm here with you for another evening of news and current events from a libertarian perspective. Tonight we'll be hearing from a couple of people who are eager to discuss with us the recent doings or non-doings at Willets Point in Queens. We'll be hearing from City Councilman Tony Avella, who represents the 19th City Council District, which is in northeastern Queens. He is also the chairman of the City Council Zoning Committee. We will also be hearing from Howard Feinstein, the owner of Feinstein Iron Works, which is a family-owned, third-generation family-owned business based in Willets Point. It was founded there in 1931. Mr. Feinstein, we hear a lot in just sort of general conversation and in the news about Willets Point and the possible development there, but nobody seems to quite know what the proposed development consists of and what its consequences will be. Can you fill us in a little bit?
Well, I can fill you in within as much as I know, which isn't that much due to the fact that there really is no plan. Nobody really has an idea of what is actually going to be built there. The city has pretty much taken the attitude that they want to clear house, erase the entire properties, and then give it to developer to actually develop as they will. They have certain parameters that they would like the developer to meet, but I don't think that the developer is going to be tied to anything that the city offers them. It's very disheartening, and it's probably the first time in the city's history that anything like this has ever been tried to be done.
Councilman Avella, we have been hearing for years now about Willets Point, and nobody seems to quite know what the proposed development is going to consist of. What is it, and is it good or bad?
Well, actually, that's a good question because we in the council don't know what it is, and that's one of our concerns that we have with the mayoral administration. We've been given an outline, but there's no substance to the proposal. Basically, for people who may not know where Willets Point is, it's the area right outside Shea Stadium, which has a preponderance of auto body repair shops. And the city is suggesting that we kick out all the property owners and then redevelop it into some mega housing structure, commercial structures. There are a number of problems with the site. My foremost issue is the fact that it's another example of the misuse of eminent domain. For your listeners, for your viewers' point of view, eminent domain is the process by which a municipality has the right to take somebody's private property, whether it's their home or their business, for a public use. And that should be a school or a highway. Here, the city's going to take private businesses, some which have been family-owned for generations, and then give that land to a private developer who's going to make millions of dollars off of it. That is really un-American. And one of the things I've suggested and other council members have suggested is take eminent domain off the table. That's the first thing.
And now let's go to Isaiah Matos in Willets Point.
Hello, my name is Isaiah Matos, and I'm a Libertarian candidate for Congress in the 14th District of New York. We're here at Willets Point Boulevard, where many people refer to as Willets Point Alley. The area is surrounded by Roosevelt Avenue, the Van Wyck Expressway, and the brand new snazzy stadium for the Mets, Citi Field. Not far from here is the 7 train, Shea Stadium, and also LaGuardia Airport. What you see here is the popular view of Willets Point. It's surrounded by auto shops of all sorts. Here you have glass repair, muffler repair, tire shops, and body shops of all types. As you can see, the streets are filled with potholes and lots of flooding, obviously the result of neglect from New York City for years and years and years. The place is also a home to heavy industry that employs thousands of workers in the area. I'm in front of Feinstein Iron Works, which employs around 50 employees in-house and up to 200 on-site construction jobs. Here is Bono Sawdust Supply, the last sawdust supplier in New York City. This is the Parts Authority on Northern Boulevard, right across the street from the brand new Citi Field. Here is the main office of Tully Construction on Northern Boulevard, one of the largest construction firms in New York City. Here is QC Iron Works. Here is USP, United Steel Products. I'm here on 126th Street in front of Citi Field. And here is just what's across the street from Citi Field.
Okay, now eminent domain has not been invoked yet, has it? And I've been hearing that that they're going to try and avoid it as best they can, but of course, who can take that seriously?
Exactly. Once you put that on the table, you in effect threaten the property owners. You better negotiate now, because otherwise we'll go to court and take your property. And then it's really up to the courts to determine what the value is. So even though it hasn't been invoked yet, the mere threat threatens property owners into negotiating with the city. It really is an unfortunate situation, and it's not actually the first time the city has okayed this. The city council, although I voted against it, and the mayor recently approved the expansion of Columbia University, and that's going to involve the use of eminent domain. Again, not for a public purpose, but to give it to a private institution.
Well, now that, I believe, is what the Supreme Court decision, the recent Supreme Court decision was about, Kelo.
Yes.
The Supreme Court decision in that case seems to have expanded the idea of eminent domain so that it can be used not only for public good, so to speak, but for what they would call a higher and better use.
Right, economic development. But what it is, it really is becoming an abuse. Because right now, if we follow the city's logic, anytime a rich developer or powerful institution goes to the city and says, you know, I've got a better use for that guy's property, give it to me and I'll do something better with it. That's a scary thought. I mean, that's really un-American, because then anybody's property or home could be taken. And although there are some businesses that could move from the Willets Point area, and I'm talking about the real junk shops, there are 10 to 12 very legitimate family-owned businesses that employ thousands of people. They've been paying property taxes ever since. They've had to put in their own infrastructure, because the city has never put in roads or sewers. These businesses have cesspools. Imagine that in the city of New York, a business having a cesspool. So they've done the city's job, and now that the land has become economically viable, the city's basically saying to them, we're going to kick you out, and somebody else is going to make money off your property. How disgraceful is that?
Well, it sounds like something to which both classical liberals and socialists would find objectionable. The classic liberals, or libertarians as we sometimes call ourselves, would object because it just makes a mockery of the idea of personal property. Whereas the socialists or collectivists would say this is a perfect example of the of private wealth unduly influencing government.
They want to develop this theoretical Garden of Eden. The fact is, we're there.
Okay, so in other words, the city wants you and other businesses to just clear the heck out of there so that some other developer can have at it and develop what they hope will be something, I don't know, nicer, more profitable to the city, whatever. But they just want you out of there?
The area is owned by us. It's owned by the other businesses that have been there generations after generations, feeding families, feeding my employees' families, developing a growing business in the New York City area.
Well, why is there any objection to your being there?
We're not that pretty. We're an industrial area.
Well, gee, that's sort of the backbone of most major cities, isn't it?
Exactly. We supply, most of my business is municipal based. It's schools, it's hospitals, it's roads, it's airports. Most of the industries down there are based around municipal construction. By taking us out of that element, we no longer have the ability to produce what we do for the city, let alone for anything else. We own the property, we own the land, we own the businesses, and the city's knocking on our door saying, you're not nice enough for this area, we'd like you to leave. They're doing it with a gun to our heads. That's the only problem.
Well, have they invoked eminent domain at this point?
No, but the threat is always hanging over our head and has been hanging over our head for well over 40 years.
Okay. And are they at this point offering you what you would consider a fair price for your business?
We have not undertaken any negotiations with the city at this point. Some businesses have, and there actually have been a few deals. But as a whole with the major businesses in the area, the answer is no.
So who does support this this little enterprise?
Well, I'm sure the rich developer who at the end of the day is going to get the project does. The mayor supports it. I assume that the Speaker of the City Council does, because they have already certified the public review application. So it's actually started the public review process. It's already gone to the community board. Next it goes to the borough president, then back to city planning, and then it comes to the city council. The very fact that the mayor initiated the application and starts the time clock on the public review tells me that he's gotten some tacit approval from the speaker that she's going to push it through. And unfortunately, although 29 of my colleagues and Councilmember Hiram Montserrat, whose district this is located in, has signed a letter to the mayor and the speaker saying we're not going to go along with this, it'll be very interesting to see at the end of the day, when the mayor and the speaker start applying pressure, how many council members actually stand up to it.
Do you have anybody in the city government who is on your side who's saying, wait a minute, this might not be a good idea to kick these people out and redevelop Willets Point?
We've been very fortunate that Councilman Tony Avella, Hiram Montserrat, and a number of others have been staunchly behind us from the beginning. Not in the fact that they're not looking for development in New York City. I'm looking for development in New York City. It's my industry. But to do it fairly. Eminent domain is a very dangerous thing, especially when it's being used to take private property for private use.
Okay. And have you heard yet about who the likely developers are going to be, or have they not reached that point in their planning?
There is no current RFP, request for proposal, from any developer at this point. They've gone through two processes, and probably the developers themselves said, give us a clean slate and then we'll come in. And that's why I feel the city is going the route it's going now.
Okay, so do you have any predictions as to what the outcome will be? Do you think that eventually you and your colleagues will be forced out of there, or do you think you'll be able to hold the fort?
I truly believe we will be able to hold the fort. The attitude in this country against eminent domain abuse is fairly strong right now. And again, if the city's looking to develop it, I'm willing to talk. I know the other businesses in the areas are willing to talk about moving, refacilitating industries. But we're not even looking at the fact that we're moving. My attitude is I'm going into work in the morning. I plan on doing that until I can't. And if the city is willing to talk, I'm happy to sit down and talk with them.
Okay. Now you have talked about you wish that the city would give you some infrastructure before they do anything else. Supposing you can persuade them to do that, then do you have any ideas for a redevelopment of Willets Point that would satisfy you and your fellow business people and please the city government at the same time? We've
actually submitted a plan recreating the Willets Point area into a Willets Point industrial park. We've submitted it to both the local community boards, the council people, and to the Queensborough president, Helen Marshall. And they're basically just leaving it aside. But it is a viable option, a lot cheaper than anything they plan on doing. And in a way, it will be an ability for the city to clean up the area without having to go through this eminent domain process.
Okay. Does the city government object to keeping it as an industrial area?
The city government right now, attitude is that they own the property.
Right.
The attitude is we are just temporary, and once things are over, whether it be eminent domain, we're just going to be out of there.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that you'll find that that's the case in a great many municipalities, that the idea is that there's really no such thing as private property. It all belongs to the collective.
Which is very scary.
Which is very scary and not really very American, in my opinion.
Right.
What can we do to turn public attitudes around? Because let's face it, a lot of just ordinary people think that that's the way it should be, that the government really should hold sway almost infinitely over any type of property or infrastructure. Can you think of anything we can do to change people's attitudes on that?
Well, I really believe that the wave right now is going against eminent domain, especially after the Suzette Kelo decision in New Haven. The attitude is that, oh, they can take my house. It's no longer taking property or dilapidated buildings or existing businesses. They can go, if they can do this, they can go after any house anywhere in the United States.
Or any business.
Or any business.
They can basically take away your livelihood just because they figure somebody else can make a little more money off of that piece of land.
Right, and there's no doubt that you can look at any piece and say, I have a better use for this. I can make a higher building, I can build a better hotel, and it's as un-American as you can probably get.
All right. Now, are you and the other businesses in Willets Point organized to fight any possible attempt to use eminent domain or other unfair tactics?
We've been very well organized for over 2 years now. We've had the proper advice from certain people. We've hired certain people to get to the people we need to talk to them, trying to get our word across.
What's the name of your organization?
Willets Point Realty Industrial Association.
Willets Point Realty Industrial Association.
Yes.
All right. Well, good luck to you.
Thank you.
I hope that you're able to at least provide an outcome that everybody can live with and that does not involve the initiation of force or fraud. And so on that note, I thank you very much for coming in. Howard Feinstein of Feinstein Iron Works, and I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that your business continues to flourish, whether in Willets Point or in some other location that you've gone to voluntarily, having been well compensated for the relocation.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, you have been on the City Council for 7 years, I believe, more or less, and you were planning to run for mayor of New York City next year on the Democratic ticket. Tell me a little about how your ideas, your platform differs from some of the other possible Democrat candidates, and then tell me about what your program is going to look like if you're elected.
Sure. Well, the first thing, before I was elected as a civic activist, I campaigned and worked towards fighting against the overdevelopment in the city of New York. Right now, the real estate industry controls the entire agenda in the city. It really is amazing. The real estate interests just can set the agenda rather than the elected officials or communities or community boards. So that is the first thing I want to tackle. I want to change the entire planning process for the city so that instead of being from the top down, it would be from the bottom up, so that community boards and community groups can get together in their own neighborhoods and say, here's what's right, here's what's wrong, here's where we need to be in 5 years, 10 years down the line, and give every citizen a real say in what happens in this city. And I'm not against development, but I am against the overdevelopment, this crushing, illegal construction that's going on that is literally destroying the charm and character of every neighborhood. That has got to stop. And I've actually submitted a lot of things in terms of legislation to do that, but I can't get it passed because of the real estate industry. So that's a major focus of my campaign.
Okay, now when you talk about illegal construction, I suppose you're talking about this proposed development of Willets Point. Are there other neighborhoods that you consider have been illegally developed?
Illegal construction is going on in every neighborhood in this city. And unfortunately, we have a Department of Buildings that's corrupt and incompetent. And the end result is nobody's watching the store. I was the first person to call for Commissioner Lancaster's resignation, and was the head of Department of Buildings, in January. The mayor's people actually were quoted as saying, oh, Councilman Avella's being ridiculous. She's doing a great job. In 3 months, he fired her because of the 2 crane accidents that had happened, and there were 8 fatalities. So you're not going to tell me in 3 months all of a sudden the city fell apart and that agency fell apart. She's been doing a terrible job. Because the mayor has a pro-development attitude, that agency has been overlooking a lot of the illegal construction. And what you have, let's say you have a 1 and 2 family home neighborhood, and then all of a sudden you see a 3, 4, 5 family go up. Or maybe you're in a small community in Brooklyn that has maybe 3 stories. All of a sudden a 21-story building goes up in your neighborhood. This destroys the quality of life, and unfortunately people have very little say in what happens. One, some of it is legal, which we have to change the planning process and the zoning to prevent the legal aspect of it. But a lot of it is illegal construction, and it's almost like we can never stop these individuals. Believe it or not, the example I use, in Queens, there's an infamous developer called Tommy Hung. In Brooklyn, it's Scarano is another infamous name. And no matter how many construction sites or how many buildings they put up illegally, all the city does is give them a little slap on the wrist. What I want the city to do is, once you've so proven yourself, shown yourself to be incapable of following the law, we should be able to say to contractors like that, that's it, you're done. You can no longer do construction in this city. Yet, for example, Tommy Hung, even the city has admitted every piece of property he touches becomes a problem. He undermines neighboring foundations. People have sued him left and right. He actually undermined the foundation of a New York City firehouse that had to be evacuated.
Well, if his developments are so nefarious and so notorious, why hasn't he been stopped? Why haven't the courts stopped him?
Well, the courts won't stop the city from giving him another permit. The courts will intervene when somebody privately sues him, which is another aspect of what I think is unfair, that the city doesn't help the innocent victims. But the bottom line is, even if he's got 30 sites and they're all a problem, if he goes for another permit on a new construction site, the city will give him another permit. How stupid is that? We should be able to say to these unscrupulous developers, that's it, you're finished.
Well, given his track record, why does the city continue to do business with him? I mean, even a libertarian will say, if you're selling me bad goods and you have a reputation, then I'm not going to trade with you. Why won't the city do that?
I wish I could get an answer out of them, because they should stop doing this. I've actually introduced legislation to give them the power to do that, and they're not supporting the legislation.
You mean that so far they are not legally empowered to...
I believe they are, but the answer they gave to me, and they have given to me for years, is they don't have the power. So I introduced legislation that would give them that power, and they're still not supporting the legislation.
Why not?
Good question. I wish I had an answer. I think it's the pro-development attitude and the control and the power that the real estate industry has in this city. It's insane. I mean, every time I talk about this, people are saying, well, it's just like somebody selling you, like an auto dealership, giving you bad car after bad car. Eventually, just as a consumer, you'd want to shut them down. Well, we're consumers of housing. We live, either people going into this illegal construction or people living next to it, maybe in unsafe condition. Why do we keep letting these people do this? It's bizarre.
Okay, well, you can be pro-development and still not do business with unscrupulous developers.
Absolutely.
So why?
That's why I'm running for mayor.
Okay, well,
something's got to change.
Why are the pro-development people so apparently blind to these depredations?
I think it is that they're worried because right now they have such a lock on what goes on in the city that any controls affect that lock and that power. And I think they're not willing to change. They're not willing to change unless we force them, and that's why I'm running. One of the major reasons I'm running for mayor. The only way to make these changes is to be the mayor of the city of New York.
Okay, then if you're mayor, what will you do about Willets Point? Will you allow some sort of development to go forward there or not? It's
a good question. What I'd like to do is work with those mom and pop family-oriented businesses that have been there for generations and incorporate them into the plan. And yes, move out the obnoxious junk shops. Auto body repair shops, and create a plan.
Would you invoke eminent domain to move them out?
No, I think we can negotiate with them. And the other aspect of it is incorporate the community into what happens there. Make sure we do real affordable housing. The way to handle it is, which the city hasn't done for 50 years, is put in the roads and put in the sewers. If you do that, which by the way is a cheaper solution, development will just take care of itself because the property will become more valuable and they'll just sell to another developer who will put up some sort of, better use, more housing or a school or something.
What would be the cost to the taxpayer to put in that infrastructure, the sewage and so on?
Well, you're probably talking about maybe, $50 million project for the roads and the sewers. But I'd be willing to bet, because we've done it in every other situation where the mayor has proposed these major projects, is even when we pick a developer, we'll still do the infrastructure, because we'll let the developer make the money, but we won't make the developer put in the infrastructure. We did that in Hudson Yards. We've done that in other locations. The two stadiums, for example. The Yankee Stadium, it's only coming out now how much money the city is actually putting into the infrastructure. I believe the last figure I heard is over $100 million.
Okay. So we could then, in effect, have the developer bear a great deal of the cost of...
Well, that's the way to do it. But what has been happening is the taxpayers bear the cost of the infrastructure, while the developer runs off after developing the property, making millions, if not tens of millions of dollars in profit. They should bear part of the cost of the infrastructure. That has not been a general policy.
Okay. Well, that being the case, I think you've given us an awful lot to talk about, and I wish you luck in your upcoming campaign for mayor, but not too much luck, because I'll probably be running against you. But I will certainly look forward to meeting you on the campaign trail, and in the meantime, thank you very much for talking with us, and you've been a real education. Thank you so much.
It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I look forward to meeting you in the future.
Very
on
good.
The campaign trail.
And that will do it for us, and tune in next week for another edition of Hardfire.
Hardfire is funded in part by the Libertarian Party of New York. www.ny.lp.org. Catering for the cast and crew of Hardfire is generously provided by Hunan Wok, 106 7th Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11215, 718-230-4008, 4009.